So what's up, people, and welcome to another video on Pamela. So instead of another commentary, I thought that I would do another tutorial sort of video for this episode. And in the previous tutorial video, we went over some of the beginner guides to how to play the game. And this was because of the fact that this was before the developers started including their own tutorials in the game. And there was a little bit of difficulty in understanding how to do the gameplay. Well, since the tutorials that the developers have included in the game has helped out in understanding the gameplay, I now see a lot of comments where people often find it difficult to get through the beginning parts. And what's interesting is, although this is survival horror, because it's permadeath, a lot of people find that getting killed is actually quite daunting. And the getting killed part is not always due to the zombies or the afflicted that come out in the game, but often due to things like running out of food or the compounded injuries that you get from multiple attacks or some of the other things that may occur in the game. So what I wanted to do was actually create a video that helped players get through the initial parts of the game as quickly as possible without getting killed and having to start the game all over again. Now, this is my point of view with regards to how to get through the initial parts of the game quickly. And so there are, of course, other ways of doing this. But I figured that since I've been playing this game for quite a while, if I were to start the game over again, this is what I would do. And that's what I wanted to create this video about. Now, for those of you who have played this game, especially in the initial parts, you know that there are a number of ways that you could get yourself killed or permadeathed. And any one of these can become extremely frustrating. The typical ones are dehydration, where you run out of things that you can drink. Similarly, starvation can kill you, where you eventually run out of food and you can't replenish yourself. And then there are, of course, the afflicted. And it could be death due to a single attack by an extremely powerful enemy or a group of enemies. Or more often, it could be something like compounded injuries where you're continuously getting attacked one after another and you just don't have any more health restore methodology. And because of that, you just run out of health and eventually die. Now, as you can imagine, each one of these problems has their own specific solution. For example, for dehydration, you could always try to create a water condenser. For starvation, you could try to create, a garden. For compounded injuries, you're usually trying to look for the next medi-hypo so that you can heal yourself and keep yourself going. And then, of course, for single large encounters of high-level enemies, you try to armor yourself up so that the damage won't be so high. The problem with all of this is that each one of these solutions takes their own effort to create. And so in the beginning, you're not exactly sure which one you want to do, and you're trying to do everything, and you're having a difficulty even doing one thing while all of these problems are compounding up to you. So what I wanted to do is go over probably what I would do to try to solve all of these problems by a single solution. And the solution that I have found that worked quite well is the development and the creation of the ranged weapons that are available in the game. Now, if you played the game, you know that you initially spawn in P.A.M.E.L.A. And this is a good thing because P.A.M.E.L.A. is one of the early parts of the map where you don't get too many high-level zombies or afflicted. And so this is actually a good place for new players who don't have anything or aren't equipped with anything to start surviving. Yeah, of course, as you know, if you spawn here, then the first things you do is you run around and try to gather a lot of things that you can help keep you alive. And they can include things like food and drinks, but they could also include things like weapons or armor or all these utility items. And of course, every one of these can be useful. If you find them, that's great. But a lot of times you don't. And of course, that's when the problems occur because you eventually run out of medihypos or food or water. And those are usually the more important things in terms of survival. And so that's where the weapons come in handy, because by having ranged weapons, you can more efficiently go after and farm zombies, and the faster you can farm zombies, the faster you'll gather drops. And by gathering drops, you collectively gather everything from food to medihypos to utility items, as well as armor and weapons. And so yeah, by being able to get yourself up and running and hunting zombies as quickly as possible gives you the ability to become more durable and survivable in this environment. Now, one of the nice things is that the game developers have incorporated crafting and building into the recent updates in the game, which weren't available in the very beginning, and because of that, you now can craft weapons. But to do so, you have to get resources, but the resources are actually relatively easy to get, as you can see here. When you press R, then you get this equipment that comes up. I forgot what it's called, but you could use it to decompose items that are basically scattered throughout the game. And if you see that funny kind of matrix looking thing that comes up whenever you're pointing it, then that means that you can, like this thing, you can decompose it. And as you decompose it, then you start getting material. And so the first thing you should do, aside from exploring and looking and opening containers and such, is while you're in the very beginning parts of Arc Medical, where not too many zombies pop up, just go around decomposing everything that you find. And this is very important because in the very beginning, you will find containers, and as you open them, you will find food and drink and other things. But if you eventually keep on exploring, you will run out of containers to open unless you go to higher level maps where you might find more difficult zombies to deal with. So what you want to do is right from the very beginning, while you have food and drink and medihypos and stuff like that that'll keep you alive, you want to start decomposing as much items as possible so that you can basically build up a lot of resources to start building. And it's very important because as much as I simply say you could craft a weapon, weapon crafting is actually not easy because it requires quite a bit of high-level resources to do so. The nice thing is all the high-level resources can be made from all the low-level resources. So long as you keep on decomposing items and gathering resources, you should collect eventually enough so that you could craft items. And the important thing, once again, is to craft ranged weapons. And ranged weapons are relatively, again, high in resources. So keep on crafting or decomposing these items. Now, once you've decomposed enough items, as you will see in your items inventory, which you get when you press O. Oh, wow, I'm punching things. Okay, items inventory, when you press O, then you'll see how much resources you'll have. It'll tell you how many units of resources you have in total, and the maximum you can have is like 10,000. So once you get several thousand units of resources, then what I would start doing is to start getting prepared to craft all the items necessary to craft your first weapon.
Is there something that I can assist you with?
Okay, so now I've been gathering a lot of resources and I've maxed out my resource inventory at 10,000, and so I can start crafting items. And what I want to craft is eventually these ranged weapons, and the one I really want to get is this arc welder, which I will talk about why a little bit later. Now, there's all these other things that can tempt you, and of course, if you want to craft any of these other items, that's up to you. For me, after experiencing all the different things that I could build, I finally realized that if I want to start out being able to farm zombies relatively quickly and staying alive, then the arc welder turns out to be good. Now, I'm here back at the very beginning room in Arc Medical, and the reason I'm here is because it doesn't spawn zombies. So this is a good place to actually start building your crafting inventory. And to do so, you have to build a lot of these items so that you can craft your weapons. And the first thing you have to do is to build these ion cores. And the ion cores are relatively simple to build. They don't take that much resources, and they take relatively low level resources. So all you have to do is to, craft a few polypropylene and stainless steel and all the stuff that doesn't take all that much resources to craft. And you got yourself your first ion core. And the ion core turns out to be necessary because you need that to actually power up all the other equipment that will be necessary to craft items. Okay, so I just finished building my first ion core here. As you can see here, it's right in your inventory. So let me drop it so that I can now build corresponding equipment that the ion core fits into. And that is the power transmitter. And of course, again, you do need power to power all this equipment that's necessary for crafting. And the ion core is kind of like a battery, but you have to put the battery in something so that it can transmit that power in the battery to all the other equipment. And that's the power transmitter. And the nice thing is, it's just like the ion core, it doesn't really require any high level material. Once again, it requires basically the standard low-level materials necessary that you basically get when you're decomposing everything. So as you can see here, I've created all those low-level material, and then you just create one of these power transmitters. And if you go back into your inventory, as you can see here, I have the power transmitter. And so you put this down on the floor, and then you take your ion core and you fit it into the power transmitter. Let me just get that. Where is that again? Okay, whoops. Let me just, yep, that's what I want to do. Okay, so there we go. And so the power transmitter is ready. I don't really need to transmit any power right now because I don't have any of the other equipment that's going. Okay, so now that the power transmitter is made, the next thing you have to make is the crafting table Mark 1. And for that, again, you only need low-level material, and you also don't even need the power transmitter turned on to make this Mark 1 crafting table. So you go through this whole routine again, and as you can see, the amount of resources necessary to make all this stuff does add up. And so that's one of the reasons why I say decompose all this stuff so that you gather all these resources. And once you gather a lot of resources, then you can craft all these things one right after the other, and you'll become that much closer to getting your weapon. Okay, so the crafting table Mark 1 is done. So now if I turn on the power transmitter, as you can see, it powers up the crafting table Mark 1. And once you start having all these crafting tables, then you can make a lot more different things. So why I built crafting table Mark 1 is you need that to build crafting table Mark 2. And crafting table Mark 2 is necessary to build the equipment bench. And the equipment bench, along with crafting table Mark 1 and Mark 2, are all necessary to build your first weapon. So you just go down the list. Once you have Mark 1, then you could build Mark 2. Then once you have Mark 2 and Mark 1, then you could build the equipment bench. And as you keep on building these more sophisticated equipment, it requires a lot more resources. So you continuously decompose resources, and as you gather enough resources, then you make these crafting tables as you go along. And as that's happening, of course, you can continue to explore open containers and do all this, but make sure that you continue to spend or focus enough of your efforts on building these crafting tables, because the faster you do so, the faster you get your weapon. Now, if you're lucky enough to get your arc welder to drop from a zombie while you're exploring, then you won't need all of this, but don't assume that that's going to happen. And by doing so and creating all of this crafting equipment, then you won't have to rely on zombies to drop the first weapon. Okay, so crafting table 2 is made now, and I just have to move it right here next to Mark 1. And as you can see, the power transmitter powers each one. Okay, so all I need to make is the equipment bench, and then I should be able to make the weapon. Now you've seen what I need to do to go through it, so let me just fast forward it to the point where I already have the equipment bench, and then we could go through and making the arc welder. Okay, so now I've made the equipment bench. I have everything, as you can see in the left hand side of this machine here, that all of the equipment bench and the crafting tables are done. And so right now I'm in the middle of trying to make the arc welder. And the arc welder does require quite a large number of high level material. And so you have to have a fairly large amount of the base material to be able to craft all of this stuff. And so I ended up having to go out and start gathering resources again. Even with the 10,000 units, I wasn't sure if I had enough. So I went out to gather more stuff. And now that I have enough material, I should be able to get the arc welder. Let me just check. Yes, there we go. So the arc welder is available now. And now that I've made it, let me just see if it's in the inventory. There it is. So now I have my ranged weapon. And now things change. Up till now, I've been running away from zombies. And if I find a lone zombie, then I will go into a fist fight, and I would somewhat kill the zombie, but it would hurt me, and then I would have to look for a medi-hypo or hopefully not get killed by a few more zombies. But now I have this arc welder. And the difference between a melee weapon and a ranged weapon is exactly that, the range. In the melee weapon, your of course, melee fighting becomes stronger, but you're still close by, so the zombies can hurt you even though you still have the weapon. Whereas if you have a ranged weapon, then you can basically fight from far away, and that makes a whole heck of a lot of difference in your farming. And because you have that advantage, now you can go around and farm a ton more zombies without worrying about getting hurt. So now, of course, I'm in search of a zombie, and there's one right there. So let me show you. Even from way out here, there you go. This is basically a completely unleveled up arc welder. I do have the overdrive utility, and so this is a little bit of cheating, but even without that, you can get some decent amount of damage by using the arc welder. And the nice thing, and why I chose the arc welder over all the other ranged weapons, is exactly that. Its alt fire gives this ball of energy. And when you shoot that ball of energy, then it stops the zombies in its tracks. So not only is this a great offensive weapon, it's a wonderful defensive weapon, because if you have like 2 or 3 zombies running after you, you could slow them down significantly by using this ball of lightning, as you can see here. And then you could walk away, get your distance, and then you could kill them with your range shot. And as you can see, I just killed 3 zombies all at once and got a lot of drops, including some food and drink out of it. So as you can see, garden would be nice for food, water condenser would be nice for water, armor might be nice if you're nearby and don't want to get hurt. But the nice thing about a ranged weapon is you literally can start taking out zombies very quickly, and then you start getting drops like crazy. And all of a sudden, you're just not worried about having to gather all those standard things such as food and drink, or even medi-hypos, because first of all, you won't need as many because you're far away. And second of all, since you are farming zombies faster, they drop medi-hypos faster, and so you'll be collecting medi-hypos a lot more than you used to do. So Yeah, the ranged weapon turns this game into a lot more survivable game, and so compared to all the other items, I still feel that the ranged weapon is one of the most useful items to first create. Now that you have your ranged weapon, or your arc welder in particular, the next thing I would suggest you do is to actually go and make a utility. And the utility I would suggest is to make the cyano reprocessor. And why is that? Is because what you'll find is as you use your arc welder, you'll notice that it requires basically electrical power. And you require batteries to recharge your arc welder. If it goes to zero electrical power, your arc welder is useless. And so the nice thing about the cyano reprocessor is that it recharges your weapon, as you can see here. So every time I shoot it, it uses electrical power, but you could see the percentage of electrical power keep on going back up because I have a cyano processor to recharge it. And so I can use the arc welder to take out zombies, and as I go from one zombie to another, the time between going fighting zombies, it will recharge the weapon again. Now there will be some instances where you'll be fighting so many zombies that your cyano reprocessor won't be able to stay up, but what you'll find is that you've gathered so many batteries that you could always recharge it quickly using the battery. So the cyano reprocessor along with the arc welder turns out to be really nice. Now the other thing is of course you're gathering units of credits, and what I would use the credits for is to get all these upgrade kits as you see here. And the nice thing about that is if you can upgrade your arc welder, all of a sudden it becomes even more powerful, and then all of a sudden you could even farm even more zombies. So the arc welder helps you farm zombies, which will help you get more credits, and then the credits will help you get more upgrade kits, which will then in turn strengthen your weapon again. And it could go on a cycle until you maxed out your weapon. Now at that point you can basically start crafting for everything else, such as your armor, all the other utilities and everything else. But what you also find is because you can farm for so many zombies, they'll be dropping a lot more items as well, and that will help you basically equip yourself up again. Now until you get to the point where you're fully equipped, I would suggest to stay within Arc Medical and farm as many zombies as possible, because the moment you step out and you go into someplace like Arcadia, which is the next door area, or the Promenade, you'll start seeing some fairly high level zombies such as the Widow and the Reaper. And at that point, unless you have some fully maxed out weapons and some armor, you may get into problems, even if you have the arc welder. So use the opportunity to farm low-level zombies in the Arc Medical region and gather all these resources and equip yourself strong enough so that now you can start exploring further. And once you do that, then you'll become much more survivable, and this game will become a lot more enjoyable because you're not constantly trying to look for the next water bottle to keep yourself alive. Okay, well that's about it for this video. I hope you found this to be somewhat useful if you're starting this game, and if you have been frustrated and dying so many times in the very beginning part of the game, then I would suggest again to try crafting a ranged weapon. In any case, we'll continue on with more Pamela videos in the future, and I hope you continue joining us in our future adventures. And it's always a pleasure to make these videos for you. If you have any comments, please post them in the comment section below. And until the next video, we wish you all the best, happy hunting, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.